A good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. America, and welcome to the Freedom Forum, an online talk show radio program brought to you by Santa Cruz Voice, an affiliate of Community TV and Think Local First. I'm the host who love you the most, Jeff Bossard. I have no one else with me in the studio today. My friend and co-host Vernon Bohr has been granted a leave of absence for a couple of weeks, but he'll be back. Today I will have an unscripted, freewheeling discussion on the news events of the past week and whatever else you care to talk about. Independence Day, the advent of summer, President Trump's big beautiful bill, and other national issues that can affect our freedoms here in our community. And we're all set up to receive your phone calls. You can call our number at 265-5050, and if I can get to your call, I will. And we hope to have lots of callers today because it's a talk show. Last week we talked a lot about the bunker-busting bombing of Iran and the prospects of another U.S. war in the Middle East. That seems to have subsided a little bit. There was that repercussions. They tried to bomb out some of our forces that were stationed in Qatar or other places. And we got past that. And now there seems to be at least a peace because of no one taking much action at the present time. You never know how long a peace accord will last in the Middle East, which many nations have found is a cauldron of conflict and the deathbed of some of our biggest empires, including the British, the Romans, and others. Anyway, glad to have your calls when they come in. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and talk about things that I want to talk about. And I hope it doesn't end up sounding like a rant. It's not supposed to be a rant. I'm just trying to be informative. The first thing I want to talk about, though, is the most recent event in the news, gathering all of our attention. Aerial cameras focused down on the flooding of the river in the western hills of Texas, hill country they call it. And of course, the first thing that happened after the news broke and everyone's being sorry and sad about missing people, we're trying to find them. Well, guess who gets blamed for this Texas flood systems? Why, Donald Trump. Who else? He's responsible for every bad thing that happens, according to some people. Unfortunately, the reason they gave was that he had fired all the newscasters, especially for that area. Well, it turns out the opposite was true. He had beefed up the number of forecasters, and they well knew what was happening as best they could, but they couldn't do much about it. You can't stop the rain when it's coming down. And it came down. I think they were like 26 feet above normal level at some point, maybe higher. That's pretty big. Some places are losing water. They gain too much. It's not much fun. Anyway, we have to ask ourselves about the war as it's going on. Is it over? And were the decoys that were set out an intentional deception on the Trump part just to keep people from knowing what was going on? So it turned out we performed pretty much a reverse Pearl Harbor. We bombed them with a big surprise. I mean, they knew it was coming, didn't know when and how much and what it would be. So we were going to watch that playing out a little bit. There was like 125 planes on our part involved in this process. And we gave them that there would be anything up to 2 weeks before we do anything. Well, it was hardly up to the 2 weeks. It was like the day after, I think, when all this took place. And it took place without congressional approval. So we have another reason to blame Trump. One problem of not telling Congress what you're going to do, because Congress has got some people there that just can't keep a secret, like anything else. So one alternative would be to have given Trump a blanket authority to do this at some time when it looked like it was proper. And I suppose they could have done that. But give that as it may, they can't really require Trump to do something they didn't require President Obama to do. He dropped thousands of bombs and never got any congressional authority for that. So I think the precedent has been set. There's some things you can do without authority and some that you do. If you're going to declare war, well, if we're going to go to war, that's got to be a Congress thing, as President Roosevelt did the day after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, when we were back in it, much to our dismay and distrust, and we didn't want to do. But when you're in it, you're in it. Should we be urging some kind of regime change as our goal, like Iraq or Afghanistan? They've been around longer than we have, so can't expect them to change very much. How will Iran retaliate on Israel and us? They've already had brigades in place here and perhaps embedded in our colleges as protesters. Will they be turned loose now and let them do whatever they will? We, after all, don't know much about anything of who is among the students that are at various colleges that may be paid for by someone in the Middle East, especially Qatar, which is the biggest provider of funds against America, bigger than perhaps even China. And we don't know when and where this money comes in, who it goes to. We just know from experience what it is, and we're kind of stuck with what it is. So we do what we can do. We'll live on. Again, expecting your calls today. I'm sitting here with a blank slate, ready to take your calls. I hope you'll do so. The other thing to talk about perhaps is economics. The big question to me is what the Federal Reserve will do and when will they do it. They have only one tool. They can tighten the economy or they can loosen it up. They can increase the interest rate or they can decrease it. And the timing of it has to be perfect. Otherwise, they might push us into a recession. And Mr. Trump would like to get rid of Mr. Powell, who's the current head of the Fed. In fact, one that he appointed, but not as happy with now. He's always famous, remember, for saying, "You're fired." But in this case, I think he cannot do that without the permission of Congress, which they might give him, they might not. I think his appointee would be someone that's already on the Fed board as the head of one of the district offices of the Federal Reserve. Someone who has good experience too and maybe has more trust. But remember, trust was given by Trump to the present holder of that job, whose role I think ends next year anyway, so maybe just wait it out, see what happens. We find that when the Fed does act, and sometimes beyond what they act, we end up increasing inflation. And inflation, as you probably know, is just a quiet little tax that just sneaks up on us, takes more money out of our pockets by making the money less worth what it was. And that's why houses cost as much now as they do. Millions more than we perhaps paid for our present homes is what the price is now. And the entry level has been put pretty high. Even if you get a loan, which is a big thing to do, a lot of people don't have enough to make the down payment. You know, it used to be you could get by with a 5%. I think I put $3,000 down on my first house here. But you don't know. It's going to be what it's going to be. The market will dictate that. And some have suggested that the U.S. government has to get into the business of building houses, building affordable houses. Well, build them where? On what land? At what expense? You have to acquire the property. Well, use federal property. Half the property in the state of California belongs to some form of government beyond the counties. It's federal land or sometimes state land. But it's not exactly desirable land. It could be in the wilderness mountains. It could be out on the desert. We've already built a lot on the southern desert of California. They put up like 500,000 homes in a very short time, some time ago. And there they sit. And they're well occupied. And they're cheaper to buy than something in, say, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Santa Clara Valley. And hopefully they have air conditioning. Boy, life without air conditioning in the southern desert? I don't think so. I happen to like the southern desert. I used to go camping there. But there's a time and place for that. So today we are going to look on things, as I said, that are in the news. And I think one of the things that's in the news that I wanted to get to, again, I started with it last week, is to talk about the perspective of the Jews, especially in the United States, of how they feel about the way they've been treated. So I'm going to read that again, and you'll have to stand back and just listen because this will take a while, but I think it's worthwhile. It was so worthwhile to me that my wife, she said, "Can you copy that for me? I'd like to see that and have it." So here we go. This is from a Professor Harold Drutz, MD. You say we run the banks. You say we run Hollywood. You say we control the media. You say we have too much influence, too much power, too much pride. But you never ask why. So let me tell you. We were banned from owning land, so we learned to make a living with our minds. While others built legacies on soil and serfdom, we built ours in scholarship and study. We became merchants, financiers, physicians, and philosophers, not because we craved gold, but because the ground was never ours to till. We were denied entry into universities, so we opened our own schools and studied twice as hard. Our emphasis on education didn't arise from privilege, it arose from exclusion. As the shittats of Eastern Europe and the ghettos of Western Europe, the Torah was our textbook, and Talmudic reasoning became our discipline. When others mocked us for our being bookish, we turned the insult into armor. You pushed us into ghettos and restricted us from guilds and professions, so we turned to what was left: entertainment, garment work, trade, and storytelling. In America, barred from many respectable jobs, we went west and helped invent Hollywood, not to brainwash, but to dream, to create magic from nothing, to tell our stories, because no one else would. You say we run the banks, but we never asked for that job either. In medieval Europe, the church banned Christians from lending money with interest, calling it sin, called it usury. But kings and nobles still needed loans, and someone had to do the collecting. So they turned to the Jews, already considered impure, already despised. Tax collection, money lending, and finance were viewed as dirty work, so who better to assign it than to the dirty Jew, who are sometimes called shysters. And so we became moneylenders not by ambition, but by force. We were squeezed for every coin we could collect, and then, when the debts mounted and the crown no longer needed us, we were expelled, or worse. Not so, by the way, here in America. I want to take a sideline here from the letter. That when future President Washington and General of his Army needed funds to get ammunition and soldiers, uniforms, all the things needed to provoke a war, he turned to especially one Jewish gentleman in New York who had good money and who literally just gave it to him to finance the rest of the war. That was your Jew, the dirty Jew, the good dirty Jew. And so we became moneylenders not by ambition but by force. Our financial roles were used as justification for persecution, pogroms, and blood labels. Yet we survived, we learned, we built an interesting understanding of money because we had no other choice. And centuries later, you turned around and said, look, how greedy they are. You say that we stole the land from others, but you forget where we came from. Jews lived across the Arab and Muslim world for centuries, not as equals, but as dhimms, second-class citizens, tolerated, not accepted, protected, but humiliated. We had to pay special taxes just to exist. We weren't allowed to build houses taller than those of our Muslim neighbors. We had to step aside in the streets, lower our gaze, and never, ever forget our place. Sometimes we were left in peace. Other times our synagogues were torched, our women assaulted, our children taken, our lives uprooted. And when the state of Israel was born, nearly 1 million Jews were expelled or forced to flee from Arab lands, stripped of their property, their citizenship, and their dignity. From Baghdad to Cairo, from Tripoli to Damascus, Jewish communities that had lasted for millennia vanished almost overnight. No United Nations agency was created for those Jewish refugees. No global right of return was demanded. We didn't hang our trauma like a weapon. We used it to build. Many of the Mitzvahide Jews that you see in Israel today are the grandchildren of those who lost everything, but finally found something greater, a home that would fight for it. So you say we're tribal, but you forget that we tried to integrate, we tried to blend in, we changed our names, straightened our curls, even abandoned our faith. But no matter how much we tried, you reminded us we were Jews. So we turned inward and leaned on each other. We built communities where we were locked out, synagogues where we were barred from churches, hospitals when we weren't welcome in yours, organizations to defend ourselves when no one else would. You say we're too successful, but success was our only security. When pogroms came, we needed money to flee. When quotas blocked our children, we needed influence to open doors. When no nation would have us, we built our own Israel, so we'd never again rely on the mercy of foreign powers. We are accused of dual loyalty, but loyalty to what? To a world that burned us or stood by while we burned? Our loyalty is to each other, because history taught us that no one else would be. You hate that Israel exists, not because of its policies, not because of land. You hated us before 1948, before a single border was drawn. What you hate is that the Jew now has power, a standing army, a government, a home. You preferred us weak, wandering, depending on your pity or your permission to live. Israel is the ultimate Jewish response to 2,000 years of homelessness, humiliation, and massacre. I'm going to stop reading that letter right now and perhaps pick it up later. Again, as I say, it's hard-hitting, it's important, it helps understand the position that they're in. And I'd like to think back, too, that from our early education of the Bible, the Jewish people had formed a community, and eventually under King David, almost like 1,000 years before Christ, going way back. A lot of the Christian traditions are picked up from the Jewish, because after all, Jesus Christ was raised in Jerusalem's area, in Israel, and hence that was his way of getting into things. Now, I'm going to take the time to do our commercials. That'll give us a couple of minutes to regroup and get ready for the next phase of this program today. Click the little dot here, see how it goes.
Save money on airfare to anywhere. Low Cost Air is the discount supermarket for all domestic and foreign airlines. A funny thing is going to happen when you call Low Cost Air. You're going to talk to a human being within 60 seconds. Save money on airfare to anywhere. Call Low Cost Air to compare at 800-704-1662. 800-704-1662.
Deer fins, wood fins, livestock, chain link, vinyl, iron fins, Cypress Coast Fence, Cypress Coast Fence.
My name is Stephen Digger. My wife and I live in Royal Oak. When my wife and I were looking to find someone to build our fence, Cypress Coast Fence was highly recommended. It was amazing. These folks are masters at their craft. They're super professional. They came in when they said they were going to come in. They finished when they said they were going to finish. The fence is perfect for our needs, everything they said it was going to be, and then some.
Give us a call for your no-obligation consultation at 831-783-1500 or at cypresscoastfence.com.
We don't just build fences, we make good neighbors.
Deer fins, wood fins, livestock, chain link, vinyl, iron fins, Cypress Coast Fence, Cypress Coast Fence.
The Hook is California's first ever cannabis outlet. 100% locally owned and operated, we're here to be your friendly neighborhood hookup. We believe that everyone should have access to fairly priced cannabis, so we work hard to get it to you for 30 to 50% less than the other guys. If you're 21 or older with a valid ID, visit us in Capitola or in Watsonville today. We're here to be your friendly neighborhood hookup. Check out our website, hookoutlet.com, for deals and stay groovy.
And we're back with the Freedom Forum. I'm still waiting for the first phone call for today. It's not a holiday. We have had many of our Monday programs that fall on holidays, starting with, I think, Washington Day, birthday, President's Day, and then Martin Luther King, Silver Chavez, and others like this, Memorial Day. All holidays that have kind of moving parts. They can move around. They always want to put them, I think, on a Monday so that you can get a 3-day weekend out of it. But those are in short supply. The 4th of July is going to be held on the 4th of July. Thanksgiving is on a Thursday, but not on a certain day of the month, but on a certain Thursday that happens to fall within that month of November. Christmas, December 25. New Year's Day, January 1. That pretty well nails it. Oh, I guess Valentine's can be considered an important date, but that just goes on Valentine's Day, 14th of February. I want to get into that one big, beautiful bill that got passed after late-night haggling between the Senate and the Congress and finally signed into law on July 4th, appropriately. And to Mr. Trump, it's big and beautiful. To the rest of us, maybe or maybe not so much. Just some of the highlights. It decreases taxes for almost everybody. It leaves the old tax system in place, but adds a lot of kinks and whistles. For example, as Trump promised, tips and overtime pay would not be taxed. And that's a large segment of our market, especially, for example, waiters and waitresses at the restaurants that we go to. And we always want to give them a nice big tip to help make sure that not only can they exist, but that the restaurant will survive. So when you're out at the restaurant, be generous with your tips. And they will thank you even more because they don't have to count that as taxable income. Now, other beneficiaries of the tax change have occurred too. Seniors, for example, get to take a bigger chunk of deduction off the income that comes from their Social Security. Anything that helps seniors this way is a good thing, especially for people like me. I like it. The taxes on people in general will end up going down because of the very liberal exemptions that are being made. But that's just one feature. You have to focus on the tax. Let's look at some of the others. For example, Medicaid. The Democrats are rightly pointing out that many people who are on Medicaid now, that is, health insurance paid for by the government, will not be having that anymore. Mostly, these are people who are not documented. Illegals, as they say. Some are those who came in more recently, some who've been here a long time and have been on the system. But the system is saying, we don't pay people or pay their health insurance if they're not citizens. And for those who do qualify for the Medicaid, we'll have to show that they're willing and able to go to work. If they're able to work, that they have to go and find work, find at least 20 hours a week to work. And this creates a kind of a bureaucratic mess because then the authority has to determine if your claims are sincere. In other words, how do they check up on whether you've actually looked for work and found it? If you are a caregiver and stay at home taking care, well, you're exempted from that requirement. If you're not able-bodied, you're exempt. You just get your Medicaid like you did before. Medicare, that's not going to change much. We pay for what we get. That's the rest of us, anyway. Food assistance had been cut. SNAP program, Supplemental Nutritional Program, SNAP, is cut by $200 billion. That'll make it harder for older adults, parents, and low-income families to qualify and receive benefits. States will now shoulder more of the cost for both SNAP benefits and administrative expenses, all while federal oversight grows stricter. These changes risk increasing food insecurity at a time when the cost of groceries and basic necessities remains high for families across our congressional districts. Now, those prices have come back down again just because, they were temporary. So it comes and it goes. The bill will limit access to care for immigrant families, in that I think we're going to end up, Trump will prevail in his efforts to say that birthright citizenship is never was intended to be part of what the Constitution contains in the 14th Amendment. And the biggest part of that really rankles people is that once someone who gets himself or herself citizenship just by being born here, then the relatives, the family of that person, all start benefiting, which is one reason we have so many undocumented people in this country, even before Mr. Biden came along with his massive influx of further illegals. Now, the importance of doing the deportations of people who don't belong here has to be handled by somebody in some way. So they're going to be providing some money to pay for the people they need, like more ICE people, things like that. So we'll get back to that. It'll be something that we want to talk about. But we have a caller here, and I'm going to see if that caller can be lured to come on and talk to us here. Hello, caller. Is this Selena? Is this Dawn?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Is this Dawn?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes. What the screen says is that the call is from Selena, someone named Selena, not Don from Salinas,
Selena,
who's called us before, and we're glad to have him. So, Don, you may know, or might have heard that our other host, Vernon Bohr, is not here with us today. So right now you can be my co-host and talk to me about what you wanted to say about any subject, including the ones...
No Vernon today, huh?
That's correct. He's been given a couple of weeks off. Was glad to have him do that if he needed that, which he did.
Yeah.
And, he'll benefit from the time off to regroup and be ready for what we're going to do a couple of weeks from now.
Well, I do have a couple of things to put out there. The first one is inflation. It's a pet peeve of mine.
Well, it's a pet peeve of everybody.
Yeah. Well, simply put, inflation is your money losing value, not prices going up. It's your money losing value. It has been said, when it comes to value, it takes about the same amount of gold to buy an average home today as it did in the year 1900. It's just that your money has no value. And the Fed makes things worse with raising interest rates. To me, all it is sleight of hand. Oh, yeah, that we raised interest rates. Now, prices are still going up. It looks like inflation. It feels like inflation. But no, it's because the interest rates are higher, which means everything costs more because of interest rates, not inflation. And to me, that just doesn't work. It never has worked. It's never solved anything. They just do this and then wait for things to fix themselves, which it ends up always doing. It fixes itself, but we end up with more expensive things. Then they lower the interest rates, and it seems like things are getting cheaper. But no, they're not any cheaper. Your money is just as worthless as it was during inflation. It's just now you're not paying the extra penalty on top of the interest rate. And the Fed right now needs to get out of the way. The economy's humming along. We have a lot of money coming into the country. We would have even more money coming in if the interest rates weren't as high as they were. They're actually hindering the economy, and that's a bad thing. And I don't know what it is with the Fed. It's like they think they can run things and do things. I don't even believe we should have a Fed. It's useless.
Yeah, the original intent was that under our Alexander Hamilton as the first treasurer, we needed a national bank. That wasn't the Fed, but eventually it turned into the Fed, or some people call it the creature from Jekyll Island, if you've ever read the book about how this thing got phased into being.
Well, that's one of the reasons why Andrew Jackson is a hero of mine, because he ended that.
Yes.
He got the money out of that bank, And I wish someone would do that with the Fed. But it seems like politicians want the Fed so they can say, well, it's not our fault, it's the Fed. And we can't do anything about it. Why we have this independent monster sitting there that can do anything it pleases, and the president can't even fire them? No, there's something wrong with that picture. And I really think we need to get rid of the Fed. But now the second thing I wanted to talk about was presidential power.
Okay.
I am perfectly fine with the president being able to fight small battles or even mobilize the entire armed force against a threat without Congress. Now, Congress can play catch up, and it's within their rights and powers to play catch up, slap the hand of the president if it needs to be slapped, but the president needs to be able to act. We cannot hinder the president in acting because it could cost us dearly. Did you know that the Panama Canal got the ball rolling on it to be constructed, not through Congress, but via executive order?
Was that Teddy Roosevelt?
By Teddy Roosevelt. And Teddy Roosevelt said, because if I left it to Congress, it'd be 50 years before one shovelful of dirt would have been dug in that canal. And I believe him. Congress is useless. Congress is very slow to act, and when they do, it's in a partisan fashion. It's never with a mind on America and on what America needs. So I'm all for the president having this power, and for Congress having the power too. For Congress to say, hey, you've been fighting this for 6 months. We either you stop it or we need to declare war, one or the other. Now that I'm perfectly fine with, but I think it's very dangerous that Congress could stop the president from acting fast on something.
Yeah, the building of the canal was important for strategic purposes to get us quickly from one side of the continents to the other without having to go around the horn, so to speak. It cost a lot of lives and a lot of money to do it, to dig their way through that. But they did it, and it's a fixed thing. Why it was given away, I don't know. It was given away, and now China kind of manages it. That is something Trump is going to be pulling back somehow.
Well, let me ask. You need to think of the mindset of the incompetent morons we have running our world. Why did we give away Hong Kong? Why did the Western world consign millions of people to communism? Why?
Because they could, and it didn't take them any effort or any money to do it. They just let it happen. Didn't cost them a nickel. Goodbye.
They let it happen, and they didn't care. Yeah. Because these incompetent people that run the world don't really care. They like to talk a good game of, better dead than red. Oh, communism bad. Well, when communism was taking over Hong Kong, they said, here's the keys. So they're just, most of these people are just full of it, in my mind.
Well,
what's that?
We're talking about people that work at a level that we're not even in. The big bankers, the mucky-ups all around the world just have a lot of control that we don't have much way to do with. And it was largely adopted by President Obama when he came on. And people asked him, well, who is your supporters? And he opened the curtains, and there was all these people in black suits and everything. And said, oh, good, he's got the New York bankers on our side. That's great. Well, we didn't know what the price was going to be. He sold out.
Well, we're one Democrat president away from losing Taiwan.
Yeah.
We're one Democrat president away from losing our sovereignty. So, to me, we've got a bunch of idiots. I thank God that we have Trump. He's the only bulwark we have against all this crazy stuff. And we need the people to understand what's going on and just how much Trump is doing for the world. But I'd better get off the phone.
Oh, okay. Well, we don't have anyone else calling yet, but I'll drop you off and we'll wait for the next call. Happily having the opportunity to hear from you, Don, and do it again. We'll be back next week.
Well, it's great. It's great to talk to you, too. Take care.
Well, thank you so much. Have a good day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, so it's us back again. there's a lot to do, as Don says, and one of the things that's important as we celebrate our country's 249th birthday is that by the next issue of a birthday for our country, the 250th, we have a lot of rebuilding to do. Meanwhile, we have another caller. I'm going to see what this person wants here. Let's see. Hello, caller. Can you hear?
Hello, Jeff.
Oh, hello there. You wanted to talk about...
I wanted to tell Don that I really appreciate and I feel the exact same way as he did.
Okay, that's two people now.
Pardon?
We'll have to get you and Don together. You could form a new party or something.
Yeah. Hey, Don, you want to have lunch?
Something
I'm
like.
really enjoying your program.
Well, invite me too. I want to be on that lunch.
About the letter that you were reading, and I believe that's written by a professor at some university.
Well, he calls himself a doctor. He's an MD, actually.
Oh, he is.
Whether he's a professor or not, I don't know. But it was a well-written letter for the Jewish side of things.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that you're reading that because it's very informative and it's very true.
Well, that encourages me to read the third and fourth pages. It's a long letter.
Yes, I can hear them. I can't wait to hear that. And I lost my train of thought as to, Don had mentioned that the Federal Reserve keeps the hands tied and the president can't even fire him.
No.
So during Trump's last term, he and Jerome Powell fought all the time.
And he appointed Jerome.
Pardon?
He appointed Jerome.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he appointed him in the first term.
But he tried to get rid of him.
Yes, he did.
They were always arguing. They had conflicting opinions as to how the economy should run, and that by raising interest rates was not the way to do it, but Jerome wouldn't listen to him, or Mr. Powell, I should say. He's not a personal friend. So they're still battling about it, but Jerome Powell did something. He said something and neglected to say part of the truth. And so now I think it's given grounds for Trump to be able to fire him. And I think they're working on that.
It may require congressional approval because they created the post and approved his appointment. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the offense was an offense that was big enough that they would do it.
Well,
so,
he has a Republican Congress, so that helps.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes in the next few weeks. But I appreciate your program, and I really enjoy it. So thank you very much.
Well, let's celebrate the 4th of July on and on forever. Thanks for calling.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
All right. We're dropping this one off, Tim.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
So drop the call and see where we are now. That means I have to reconnect, so pardon me a second while I do that. Ready?
Ready to connect. Click connect to show now. You are connected as the host.
There you go.
Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface. Audio recording is on. Dual channel.
Well, that was interesting. I got it back, though. We're hooked up again, ready to take the next call. That's pretty ambitious on my part. Anyway, we'll get back to what our last caller had asked about, and that was the letter that I was reading from the Jewish perspective. And I will get into that right now, getting into the third and fourth pages. So brace yourself, folks. Here it comes. You hate that we don't ask permission anymore, that we don't wait for the world's sympathy to defend ourselves. You hate that we build, we innovate, we revive ancient languages and make deserts bloom. You hate that Jewish self-determination is real and thriving and permanent. And here's what scares you the most. Israel is not a reaction to the Holocaust. It is the insurance policy against the next one. It is the place where never again isn't just a slogan, it's a security doctrine. It's F-16s, Iron Dome, and boys and girls in olive green who won't go quietly away. You hate that Israel exists because it means the Jew is no longer at your mercy, and you hate that Israel is strong. What did you expect? That the people you scattered, ghettoized, and slaughtered would build a weak country? The nation born from Holocaust ashes would now vow never again and not mean it? You hate that Zionism has been the most successful decolonization project, perhaps ever. While nations all over the world were casting off foreign rule, one ancient people did the impossible. We returned home after 2,000 years in exile, not to conquer someone else's land, but to reclaim our own. Zionism was never about imperialism. It was about ending the longest colonization in history, the displacement of Jews from their indigenous homeland. We are indigenous to the land of Israel. Our language was born there. Our prophets walked there. Our ancestors prayed there, facing Jerusalem, not Paris, not Warsaw. We didn't colonize the land, we revived it. We built a state not on conquest, but on return. And we did it while surrounded by enemies, embargoed by the world, and mourning our murdered millions. You celebrate decolonization until the Jew does it. You want every people to rise, except us. And then came October 7th. You showed us, again, exactly why we need Israel. You showed us what happens when Jews are vulnerable, what happens when we let our guard down, what happens when we believe that hatred has an expiration date. On October 7th, the mask fell. Hamas didn't target soldiers. They targeted babies, grandmothers, festival goers, peace activists, Holocaust survivors. They raped, mutilated, burned, and broadcasted it to the world. And while we searched for our kidnapped children and buried our dead, the world gathered to chant, not against terror, but against us. You held up signs that said, "By any means necessary." You justified the slaughter with words like resistance. You turned our grief into your celebration. October 7th wasn't just a massacre, it was a revelation. It reminded us that no amount of assimilation, no level of success, no Nobel Prizes, no peace treaties, no hashtags will protect us if we cannot protect ourselves. We now live in a post-October 7th world, a world where Jews are done apologizing, done seeking your approval, done believing that we just explain ourselves better. You'll stop hating us. We know now, without a doubt, that the world's memory is short, but ours is long. We are a people who carry both trauma and tenacity. We are the children of refugees who became warriors, the descendants of Holocaust survivors who became state builders, the grandchildren of exiles who came home. You tried to destroy us on October 7th. Instead, you reminded us of who we are. Here's the irony you refused to see. It was your hatred that made us this way. You forced us out of your professions, so we mastered the ones you didn't want. You shut us out of your elite institutions, so we built better ones. You isolated us, so we built our own networks. You called us weak, so we became strong. You wanted us poor and powerless, and trying to keep us there, you gave us every reason to rise. Anti-Semitism didn't stop Jewish success. It caused it. You wanted us out of your world. We built a new one. And now you complain it's thriving. So yes, we are proud. Yes, we are successful. Yes, we are influential. But none of it came easy. Every Jewish triumph stands atop centuries of exile, scapegoating, genocide, and resilience. We became strong because you gave us no other choice. You made us into the people you now resent. And we're not sorry. And that was Harold P. Drutz, M.D. Thank him for that. Thanks for the time today to be able to read that, finally, in its full-blown, successful publication. Looking ahead, we have much to do, as I started to say, before the next celebration of our nation's birth. And the biggest thing is that we have a flaw in the separation of powers that was envisioned and put into place in our Constitution. And rather than have one king who could do everything, who could make decisions, pass laws, judge people guilty or not guilty, they split all these things up into three separate powerful entities, each separate from the other. The first and more important one of them was the legislative branch, our Congress. They are representing the people, supposedly. Who knows once they get there what they're doing, but that's their aim, that's their purpose in getting elected. And they make the laws, they listen to what we want to have done, and then they supposedly carry those out. In fact, what they are doing nowadays is just whatever they think they should do so they'd have better control over things, including us. Anyway, that's one branch. The next one is the executive, the president. And he has the power to run the country, basically, including all the departments that are under him, and to make his wishes known to the Congress so they'll pass laws, that they recently did, to give him the things that he desires to go forward to carry out his plans. And that worked pretty well. But there's a second hindrance to what has happened here. The legislative and the executive branches now are having to defer to the third branch, the judicial. And the first thing that happened was that every time Trump would make a move, one of the local district courts would put an issue out, order stopping that in its tracks. Well, the Supreme Court finally got involved and said, little district courts, you have jurisdiction over the people who are in front of you and no others. You can't control what Mr. Trump does to anything outside your little district. It can only affect the people that are before the court. That means the plaintiffs, the people who came in, they forum shopped, and found a place where they could get relief, and you gave it to them. Well, so much for the good. It's only temporary, but it doesn't reach any farther. And the Supreme Court is finally going to take up the issue of birthright citizenship. And it should be a no-brainer. It should be very simple. Why would we be so stupid, foolish, to say that anyone just happened to be here on the day that the child was born into them? Oh, that child is now a citizen of the country. Bypassing all the other things you have to do to become a citizen, like make an application, like wait 5 years or whatever it takes to learn more about our country, its rules, its orders, its culture, and try to assimilate them into your own system, and be someone that we need here to do something that's needed in our country. We are very famous for importing people of all different places, and those who have expertise, especially we see that in our own Silicon Valley, engineers of all sorts, chemists, whatever, coming from India, from wherever. And so that's the kind of people I think we want. It's people like ourselves who came here to not be freeloaders, to live off others, but to produce, to add to our production, to make us more successful, perhaps eventually to fight in our wars. And that's the big flaw with the system now. And I hope the Supreme Court will look at the 14th Amendment the way I do and say, well, it only affects people who are under the jurisdiction of that state in which the birth occurred. In other words, the state of California doesn't control them. The state they're under the jurisdiction of is the one they came from. If they came from Mexico, they're Mexicans, subject to the Mexican government. And that will be true when they go back home to Mexico. But just coming here and then suddenly have a child and thinking, well, now we've got it made. No, we never intended it to be that way. Certainly our founding fathers didn't. And certainly those who amended the Constitution after the Civil War to grant rights to the black slaves who were already here, they are the ones who paid the price. They don't need reparations. They need citizenship. They got citizenship. Done deal. It should have been that way. We shouldn't have had slavery at all in the first place. And I can argue with people one way or the other about whether we should have had a civil war just for the purpose of getting rid of slavery in half of our states. The proper thing to have done, seems to me, would have been to allow the states that had slavery to withdraw from the Union. They volunteered to get into the Union. They gave up some rights to do that. They want those rights back. They should go out and let their states be separate states with separate powers to do what they wish. Now, that wouldn't have got rid of slavery, which is an evil, but it would have separated the two kinds of countries into two different types of countries so that they could each live peaceably with each other. I can see why someone would not like to lose the South as part of our country, because there's some important ports in that area and certain things we can benefit from. Likewise, South loses some of the benefits of the northern states, but it would have been a fair trade. But I can't go back and change history. I can admire President Lincoln for doing what he did and granting freedom to the black slave finally after so many abuses. The Dred Scott case, for example, that said, oh, this slave who escaped is not his, they said it was, well, it's property. You can take him back. He's not a citizen of anything. No skin off our nose. Thank you. No, the Supreme Court had a chance to act, to actually legislate, if you will. And that's one of the things that our Supreme Court does once in a while. They legislate. That's how the Roe versus Wade case came out and how it changed. They legislated and then they re-legislated. They made laws. And we have to abide by them. We should. We may disrespect the laws, however they came out, no matter which side won on them. And it's bothersome in a way that we have courts that are deemed conservative because 6 of the 9 judges are more conservative. That means, in other words, they adhere to the Constitution. And they don't go outside the Constitution, as some of the other 2 or 3 do, to say, oh, this should never have been done. We should have done this. Not because it's constitutionally based, but just because I feel like it. It doesn't seem right to me. Well, that's no reason for a Supreme Court to do what a Supreme Court does. But our time for this show has run out, and I hope to be back next week to do a similar one. So let's play a little traveling music here for us to get out of the way. Meanwhile, for the rest of this Independence Day period and for the rest of summer, you're going to be driving a lot. Let's all be safe drivers. When you get into your car, realize that it's a deadly weapon and could be so used if not treated properly. Before you take a long trip, get it serviced. Make sure it's not going to die out on you somewhere out on the road. And drive with your head on a swivel, keeping aware of what's going on around you. Go slow. Enjoy the scenery. Enjoy the fact that you get back from this whole thing alive. And don't be an imposition on someone else. In fact, if they have a right-of-way, hey, maybe give it to them. It's a nice, generous thing you can do. You're part of one stupendous whole, and you have to act like it, like one of the stars in the sky.